And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk, Memorial Stadium, Champaign, Illinois. Michigan State 23-15, victorious over number 16 ranked Illinois. An upset for the Spartans. A lot of people didn't think they could come down here, stick together, and play like this. I certainly didn't expect it. But before the game, I said, if Michigan State wins, please understand what a great accomplishment that would be to come down here and beat this team from Illinois, which led the nation, or maybe one or two in the nation, in time of possession. And for Michigan State to continually get off the field and force third down stoppages and fourth down stoppages. Michigan State on defense, first of all, and making some plays as the game went along after a near disastrous beginning. Really an inspirational and heartfelt victory for Michigan State today, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to overcome the loss of one person. I was thinking of, battling back from adversity games. And I think of the Will Golston game after Michigan where he had to sit out the suspension. They beat a really, really good Wisconsin team where they didn't commit any penalties. And, that was an accomplishment. But to overcome this where you're missing 8 players, not only 8 players, you're missing, your best defensive player, arguably, in Jacoby Windman, and you're missing multiple guys, multiple defensive linemen, and then you're missing defensive backs that have made plays. So to do what Michigan State did was pretty amazing. And this is really the first time this year we've seen Michigan State as the defense get off the field in really key situations. I'm going to write about it in a little bit, but you want to think about what is a hallmark of a really good defense. It's sudden change. We saw that early on in the first goal line stand. And then we saw Michigan State for the first time this year really get off the field right before halftime when they were, when Illinois was kind of moving the ball. And not only that, coming out of the locker room, when Illinois had the wind in their favor, and that was a big deal. The coin toss is a big deal today. But getting off the field in that scenario, this is the first time we've seen the defense do those type of things, getting off the field at times where it's critical for defenses to get off the field if you're a good defense. Michigan State looked like a good defense against a really powerful, potent Wisconsin team, and I think there's going to be some people out there be like, oh, these guys play in the Big Ten West. It's not as good, but this Illinois team is legit. They play very, very good defense. They hit very, very hard. They're very, very sound. And in the circumstances under which Michigan State pulled off this upset are very, very impressive. I think of the Peyton Thorne touchdown to Jaden Reed. That was into the wind. That was not easy. That was a great pass. Or some of the passes that he made to running backs, and so many different guys made plays today. But this was really Michigan State's first complete game performance, in my opinion, against a very good team. I'm not sure what happens next, because they're obviously emotionally very invested in this game. But we've seen in past where sometimes there's emotional games you can build on them. And some of the guys that had big games today, I think those are guys that you can continue to build with. I think of a guy like Aaron Brule. That's good for him to have a big game. Some of the defensive linemen that stepped up. Deshaun Mallory, I didn't expect that from him. He had a big game. Like some of the defensive backs, I thought Chester Kimbrough played good. I thought there was a lot of really, really good things that Michigan State can build on, and I think this rewrites the narrative a little bit in terms of, I think today you saw what the true culture of Michigan State is. We spent the entire week talking about what the culture of Michigan State is with guys getting in trouble. Well, I think you find out about a team based on how they perform when things are at their bleakest. This was a bleak week for Michigan State, and these guys stepped up and they played team football for 60 minutes, and I think it says a lot about. It answers a lot of questions, in my opinion. Some of the things hanging over the program. I feel a lot better about where the program is at based on how they played in how not just the final score, but how this team played as a group.
I agree. I said this game would be like a midterm exam, maybe not a final exam, but it'd be an indicator of where the rest of the season is headed, but also what's in the hearts and the minds of the entire program. And Mel Tucker said that the team did a good job of blocking out the noise. We have no idea how much noise seeped in, but they knew what was being said about them and everything that happened after last week. And to come out with blinders on and play physical on defense. I mean, Illinois, Chase Brown, very good running back, number 1 leading rusher in the country, 33 attempts. 4.1 yards per carry. His longest one was 18 yards. He was effective, but they never let him get loose. Kind of like last week. They never quite let Corum get loose. The TKO came later with the snap over the punter's head and those type of things. But Michigan State's run defense carried over, even without Angelo Gross, without Zion Young. Other guys stepped up. some innovation there with Michigan State, putting Jalen Hunt at defensive end, a guy we've been waiting to see play for a couple of years now. He's had little bit rolls, then he disappear, bit roll, disappear. Came in, started at defensive end in place of Zion Young. Zion Young's out there because of other injuries. And Jalen Hunt came out there, and I didn't see a weakness there. And like Mel Tucker said, if they were going to run the ball, they weren't going to push us around, or words to that effect. We were going to be firm against the run, and that was job one today, to be firm against the run. And from the beginning, Michigan State threw an interception. They get down inside the 5-yard line. They run a quarterback sweep, and they had a little, like they ran Chase Brown from fullback depth once, and on fourth down, they threw the ball. That tells you right there that Bielema knew that this defensive front for Michigan State wasn't something that he felt he could just like push around all day. He saw the goal line stands at Washington and other checkpoints throughout the course of the season. From the beginning, for them to throw the ball on 4th and 1 in the end zone, I thought that was kind of an indicator. It's kind of like surviving round 1 with Mike Tyson a little bit. Hey, I got some respect from the opponent there.
Yeah, the thing that impressed me is some of the guys that were doing it. Okay, he might have seen what those goal line stands were, but we didn't see like Avery Dunn stepping up and playing like this well. Now he's had baptism by fire this year. He's a guy that's a pass rusher, not a run stopper. But he did a really nice job against this Illinois team today, and that shows a lot of growth from where he was at. Getting pressed into duty a few weeks ago, or about a little bit more than a month ago. He's grown a lot. Like the Deshaun Mallory, I think of some of those goal line plays. Maybe even against like Ohio State, where I felt like he was in position to make a play, and there was like a little bit of a block where he got kind of crossed up a little bit. He wasn't getting crossed up today. He was making plays and doing it with confidence, and those are really good things. Guys coming in that you didn't expect to come in. This was like, I thought the Wisconsin win was a program win, but if Michigan State is able somehow, to continue this and to get bowl eligibility, to me this game will signify almost what I think back in 2012 when Michigan State went up to Minnesota with that Le'Veon Bell team.
Yeah.
They didn't have a quarterback, and they found a way to win up there in an impressive fashion. That wasn't a great Minnesota team, but that was a Michigan State team without a quarterback. It's a Michigan State team that had a will. Le'Veon Bell ran the football. The defense played great. I feel like this team has faced more adversity than that team. I feel like this team has faced a whole lot more adversity as a defense than like that D'Antonio era Pinstripe Bowl team. But what I saw today and what I saw against Wisconsin, what I've seen in the last, even against Michigan in terms of what the defensive willpower and some of the things on offense, it reminds me of some of those teams that have found a way to make lemonade out of a lemony season.
You have to be good on defense first of all, and they struggled at Washington. They were terrible against Minnesota with Henderson out and all the injuries that they had. I beat that to death a little bit, but Minnesota, Michigan State they weren't even trying to disguise things. Yeah. This defense right now is completely different than when they played against Minnesota. Their ability to build, get some players back, but it was a bad defense in a lot of ways last year, a bad defense in September and early October, but it hasn't stayed a bad defense. They've been able to build as they've gone along, and today Illinois comes out here, very good rushing attack, and Illinois got enough first downs, sustained the ball a little bit. Illinois ran the ball 47 times today, 153 yards, which is a decent number. That's 3.3 per carry. When the team like that is hammering you 47 times, and you've got revolving door at linebacker a little bit, and you've got different pieces, different parts, Michigan State just kept toeing the line and sticking their chin out and taking it, and really remarkable performance by them physically, and also in terms of the structure and the organization, on the same page, and excellent job.
One of the things I think that's allowed Michigan State to do this, like when you think of Deshaun Mallory and Jalen Hunt at defensive end, they couldn't have done that earlier in the season. When you talk about Washington, Michigan State has 4 really good interior defensive linemen. Jacob Slade, his health isn't necessarily what he would like it to be, but he's still really good. So you've got guys you've got guys that started the season like Maverick Hansen as a backup. But now you've got Simeon Barrow, Jacob Slade, Maverick Hansen, and my man from Detroit,
Derek Harmon,
who is really, really, really coming on. He had a really good game. And so you've got those 4 guys that are absolutely quality interior defensive linemen. There are very few teams in this country that have 4 interior defensive linemen as competent as those 4 that Michigan State has. That allows you to move guys like Jalen Hunt or Deshaun Mallory, who are really inside guys, out to the edge for games like this. And if they didn't have those 4 inside guys, you couldn't experiment. You couldn't kind of take people by surprise with what they had in Deshaun Mallory, I thought that him playing defensive end this year was going to be an absolute train wreck. And I'll go back. He deserves all the credit in the world for sticking with it, getting better, building confidence, and just being one of those guys that gets incrementally a little bit better every time he plays. I give him a lot of credit.
Now, Michigan State was not perfect, of course, today. They made some mistakes as well. That interception to begin the game, Thorne said they'd been practicing that all week. I thought it was a little bit of a crapshoot there, rolling the dice from the beginning with the wind the way it was. Thorne said he felt a little bit of pressure and put it up there, and he thought it was in a position where Barker would be able to catch it, and he said, probably the wind had something to do with that.
And he felt like Barker got tangled up on that too.
So that was aggressive. Tucker said they were going to be aggressive here today, and they were aggressive going for a touchdown there in the late moments, something that a lot of Michigan State fans are talking about. Michigan State had a third down, about a minute and 10 to go. If you run the ball there and get it stopped, then you're kicking a field goal with like 35 seconds to go, and even if you miss it, Illinois doesn't have much of a chance to win. Tucker said they were going to be aggressive and try to go for the win right there. And it didn't work out. They did spring some receivers open. He threw to Collins, missed him at his feet. We could see from the press box that Daniel Barker was wide open on a corner route going to the back corner. Thorne said he was reading from low to deep, so he never even looked at Barker. He thought the initial one was open. That's who he went to. Barker came back to the sideline, of course, saying I was open, and he heard that. If he throws to Barker there, maybe Barker catches it. Maybe
he drops. Maybe more likely he drops it.
Well, if he catches it, he would have salted the game away here where he used to play. But Michigan State was aggressive, risk reward. The reward is winning it right there, especially when you don't have confidence in your field goal unit. So they're going for a touchdown. I understand that completely. That's why they're going for a touchdown. But the clock, the risk is you don't get a chance to burn that much clock. But the reward is to win right there, and he was open, just didn't execute.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, the other end of it is, okay, what you said is absolutely true. But then you see Peyton Thorne on the previous offensive possession sliding, forcing Illinois to take a timeout. This defense was playing good enough, to stop these guys, and it was pretty dang impressive, the fact that Michigan State was up by as much as they were, and Illinois was going into the wind. And, Tommy DeVito, I think, is a nice looking quarterback. I think he's got some good players, but he's had a run. He like Peyton Thorne last year, had an undeniable run game where everyone has to respect that. Today, he wasn't ready to have this put on his shoulders. I think to some extent, Peyton Thorne had one of his better games. Even some of those throws that Jaden Reed couldn't reel in back in the end zone, those were pretty good. And the fact that he was able to bounce back from those, from the early interception, impressive. But a lot of guys did a lot of good things today. I thought Jalen Berger played his best game as a Michigan State player today, not only as a running back but also as a pass catcher. I thought Broussard, who I haven't been very high on, he did a couple good things. He had that nice catch for 20 yards on the sideline. Tight ends, they did some good things. Daniel Barker did not make a catch in this game. Maybe it would have been different his homecoming if he had that touchdown. But we've seen a lot of really good Michigan State teams, be in a situation. I think some of the really good D'Antonio teams where they didn't quite salt it away, and that the team had a chance late. I think of that Boise State game where R.J. Williamson had to have the interception, late in the game. And there's been others. The TCU game in the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl where Michigan State was really kind of in control of that game, but at the end they couldn't salt it. This is a really good team, and this is a team that was only giving up 8 points a game. So I know there's a lot of people that want Michigan State to score 30 or 40 points on everybody, but the fact that Michigan State scored as many points as they did in this game, in these conditions, is pretty impressive to me.
And I agree with all that. In Illinois, they put together 441 yards, but they're playing from behind, and Michigan State kept giving them a long field, so they'd throw the ball out to midfield or whatever, because the numbers, DeVito's numbers end up looking really good.
Yeah, but
25 out of 37 for 288.
The magic number is for like these guys. So this Michigan State defense is red zone defense, right. and you look at the red zone numbers for Illinois. What are they? 1 of 6 in the red zone.
1 out of 4. So they only got into the red zone 4 times. I mean, they scored from outside of the red zone 1 of their touchdowns, but they moved from like their own 10 to the Michigan State 40 a lot of times, but really didn't get much further than that. They weren't able to finish those long drives. And, DeVito ends up 25 of 37 for 288. but Michigan State kept him contained. I mean, he moved the ball, but never really came close to hitting kill shots. And Michigan State's pass defense was changing it up and doing some great stuff, and doing it differently with different coverages. The last 4 plays of the game, I had him 1st and 10, cover 6, 2nd and 10, cover 2, 3rd and 10, cover 3, 4th and 10, cover 1. 4 different coverages on those last 4 snaps.
Yeah, and you can't do that without Xavier Henderson, right? I mean, you can't do that without guys that are veteran dudes. And we've seen this like growing from the Wisconsin game till now. And, you and I talked earlier this week. We felt like both of us, I think, feel like they played their best defense prior to this game against Michigan, holding them out of the end zone. But you see them growing together, and you see guys making plays. The linebackers, this is the first time I can think of that every single linebacker that played for Michigan State made plays, whether it was Van Sumeren, and give Van Sumeren credit. He had
good first half against the run.
But this is the kind of game I expected him to really struggle in, that fist fight in a phone booth type game, and he played as well, I think, as he can play in this style of football. Cal Haladay, this suits him. I think of, the play before, I think it was the play right before the Xavier Henderson deal where it was second and 1, maybe, and Cal Haladay shoots through there. Boom.
Tackle for loss.
Yeah, tackle for loss. And then that kind of looked like what I'm used to with Michigan State defense back in like the D'Antonio era. You're not just giving up a first down. No one's giving up, and 2nd and 1 becomes 3rd and 5. And there was a lot of moments like that today for the Michigan State defense. And then special teams too. Obviously there was a missed extra point. There's a missed field goal late. But if you look at what this special teams unit has, how they've struggled. This was a huge performance for them when you look at Bryce Behringer, field goal kicker in the first half, kicking a harder field goal into the wind. That was a big deal. Coverage was really good, and then like the underrated thing was like Jack Stone on kickoffs and stuff like that. I mean, there was some really, really good growth on special teams today. And aside from the obvious misses.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Haladay, I'd be interested to see, how many games he's had in his career where he grades out as well against the run as he did today. With Jacoby Windman being down, being out, Haladay next to Van Sumeren, going back to, those guys played earlier in the year together. Both of those guys stepped up with Windman out. In a lot of ways, they were very solid. And different players up there at the linebacker level. Xavier Henderson came up and basically played at the linebacker level a few times. He played some nickel. And then he basically played linebacker when Michigan State went dime. They had Kimbrough in there at nickel, so Kimbrough and Xavier Henderson were both up at the nickel level, whereas Mangum was on the field with Brooks back there. So you had those two safeties, and then Henderson was up near the line of scrimmage, not playing nickel because Kimbrough was out there. So it was dime, pure dime. Saw a little bit of that maybe last week, but the first time that we've seen it this extensively. You wouldn't normally think that dime would come into play as much against a Bielema team, but it did today, especially with as much as Illinois had to throw the ball. Late in the game, clocks against them, and Michigan State, for a defense that really all of last year threw an excellent game, or excellent season last year, I'm not sure how many times you could really count on a Michigan State pass defense to remain on the same page for 4 quarters, and to do it today with more coverages and a deeper volume shows growth there, and it shows, and Henderson has a lot to do with that. Moving forward in the program into next year, they'll have to do it without Henderson on the field, of course.
Right.
But Malik Spencer comes in as a true freshman after Kendall Brooks got hurt, and he was in there up at the, sometimes up at the linebacker level, sometimes deep. They didn't dumb it down when he was in there. He had to get in there, and I didn't see any mistakes from him. So Malik Spencer, a guy that they've been high on. Henderson is a guy that really raved about him in August, and then Malik Spencer went down for a couple months with an injury. He's back now, and you need everybody. With Justin White being suspended, Angelo Gross being suspended. Not that those guys would have been any better out here today, but other guys moved in, and there's some future there. Charles Brantley continued to play well at corner also.
Yeah, the thing that really impressed me with Malik Spencer is how vocal he is, and he carries himself with a self-confidence. You go back to some of the other guys that, like, when they first got in there, whether it's a Justin White, or whoever, not as vocal, but he's out there, vocalizing what's going on defense, and not being afraid to let his voice be heard. He plays, I think, pretty firm, pretty fast. Now, someone's probably going to take advantage of him, but to see him do that was a really good thing. I think one of the things that one of the things that really helped Michigan State out in some of those short intermediate routes where fans are always saying, man, we're always getting killed under over the middle. I think Michigan State did a really nice job against their tight end. He was targeted 8 times today. He made 3 catches. Some of those, the fans wanted pass interference, but I think like Chester Kimbrough was one of those guys that was in there quite a bit, doing a nice job for a guy his size on tight ends. And it was good to see Chester Kimbrough, a guy who started the season, got sent to the wasteland. It was nice to see him make it back to relevance today.
Right. Amir Speed struggled on that earlier touchdown, got caught man-to-man on that one, and I don't know. It looked like he's playing flag football going down the sideline there, and I was kind of surprised that he stayed in. But he stayed in and ended up with 12 tackles, a team high. But they still need better play out of him as they move forward. You've got Rutgers and Indiana coming up now. Now you gotta, as Tucker would say, don't get, what does he say? Don't get seduced by success or whatever.
Yeah. I don't think that's gonna. I don't really think that's gonna happen with this team. They're still sub 500, right? They're 4-5, and these guys talk about one game at a time, and I'm sure that's the case. They're going to be looking at Rutgers next week. But for a guy like Xavier Henderson, he's been part of teams that have kind of struggled and found a way to get back. I think as a senior, as a veteran, that is an important part of your legacy, to deal with adversity and find a way to make the best of a bad situation. At least for me, when I look at it, when I think of guys and I think of their final seasons, I think of guys like Mike Panishuk, Raekwon Williams, Kenny Willekes. Those guys had high hopes to compete for a Big Ten championship going in their last season. It didn't work out for them, but they found a way to make the best of a bad situation. And for a guy like Xavier Henderson, he's built in that same kind of mold where he wants part of his legacy to be Michigan State being, like, as a brand, scrappy, resilient, and they were every bit that today.
I thought, I've been concerned about the offense and, where it was going to build toward and scheming and those type of things. But I thought Jay Johnson had a couple of good things today. Even when they decided to go for it on that third down situation, do we run clock or do we go for it? Obviously, Tucker made the decision, hey, we're going to be aggressive. So Jay Johnson came up with a play that was open, just didn't get executed. The touchdown to Jaden Reed, usually they had Jaden Reed and Coleman on different sides of the field. On that one, there were a couple times today when they went trips, and Jaden Reed was in the middle. That slot fade seems kind of simple, but went to it and got that done. Got some run plays going also. I mentioned in the pre-snap read with the way that Illinois plays a lot of man-to-man with a lot of pressure that throwing to the running backs would be something that could be open against this defense that was number 2 in the nation or whatever in total defense. They hadn't shown a lot of openings against a lot of opponents thus far. I thought getting the running backs involved would be important, and more so than any time maybe in 3 or 4 years the running backs were involved. Running backs had 7 catches for 70 yards today, and they were key. Broussard had that one for 21 yards. That was welcomed at that time also. Now, so if you can beat Rutgers and beat Indiana, Peyton Thorne says, we're not thinking about bowl games right now. We're a next week team. Did he say that, or did Xavier Henderson say that?
I think Xavier Henderson said it.
Next week team, and Thorne was
maybe it was Thorne. I don't know. Either of those guys, they're programmed the same way. But deep down, even though they're thinking about process, like I said a second ago, part of their legacy is part of what they want. And think a guy like Jaden Reed, you want to go out in a positive note. You want to go out as a winner. I don't care what bowl it is. You don't want to go out as a 3 and whatever team.
3 and they were staring right at 3-9, man. So winning this game, if they can win those 2, they get to 6-5 and lock that up. Then you go to Penn State and you're playing for something.
Right.
Yeah, it's a trophy game. It's kind of a rivalry game. It's a traditional end of season game.
Even though Penn State's unrivaled.
But go in there 6-5 and saying we can beat Penn State and feel great about that. Be very difficult and get to 7-5. You get to 7-5 and you win 4 straight. You're not going to the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit, I don't think, Paul.
No, I don't think so.
I think you could jump up in the bowl pecking order.
I don't honestly care if you do. I mean, it's not. They're not. That's been Michigan State's irrational fear from a lot of fans. Like, who cares, man? Like, I'd much rather go to the Quick Lane Bowl than be 3 and whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's dumb. And
I don't think those hesitations are what they used to be back in like 1996 when it was the Silverdome and it was the Motor City Bowl. Nothing against the Motor City Bowl, but Detroit's changed a lot since 1997. Going downtown, not a bad thing at all.
Your guy Tim Stout's going to talk about it and be negative. That's what happens. Like on some of those talk shows, that stigma. The same people that think that Northwestern should be easy to beat every week, or Wisconsin should be easy to beat because they were back pre-Barry Alvarez. Those same type of people are going to downplay it. But for this team, for this imperfect Michigan State team, that's that would be a good thing. Just like, in some years at Michigan State basketball, knowing that you're going to get to the NCAA tournament, but you're not going to win. You're not going to win that first weekend, but just getting there is reward for hard work, and it matters, in my opinion.
Have to get that kicking game straightened around. Ben Patton has some talent. I was watching him. I know it's pregame, but he had that 49-yarder in overtime last year for Auburn in overtime against Alabama. It doesn't get any more pressurized than that in a regular season college football game.
I think it's operational. If you go back and watch that snap, I'm not sure exactly what that was. It was tough conditions today. I think the long snapper in this game, I haven't talked to Bryce Behringer. He feels like, he did a much better job in this game, and that he did against Michigan. I would agree. Just watch, Bryce Behringer felt more comfortable warming up in this game than he has in a long time, and he felt good going into this game. There are signs that things are going in the right direction, but the operation, the field goal unit as an operation, I think it has to be better.
Mm-hmm. They're going to have a great week of practice after this, Paul. They're going to feel good about themselves. They got some goals. They're a one-week team. They try to beat Rutgers next week. Tucker's excited about getting back in front of the home fans, and if they play like this, there'll be some more happy days this season, which I wasn't so sure about that just 72 hours ago. They showed something to me. I wasn't sure it would be there. But now that we've seen it happen, I guess I guess I shouldn't be surprised, Paul.
No, and we've seen this before from Michigan State teams. I think of that Brian Lewerke team's win at Penn State. That seemed pretty unlikely. There's been games like this in the past, but to beat a team of this caliber, and this is a very, very good team, these guys deserve a lot of credit. Now, where it goes from here is anybody's guess, but to see some of the guys that made the progress today, that's got to be encouraging, because guys that needed to take steps took steps.
Absolutely. Great points, Paul. Appreciate your insight here. Appreciate all the SpartanMag.com subscribers sticking with us and checking us out. That's about it. Anything else, Paul? That's it. For Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni. You've been watching the VCast from Memorial Stadium in Champaign, Illinois, for SpartanMag.com.